So what the heck is this? This is me talking about some of the things that I love most in the world, games. More specifically, it's me talking about games I feel you should know about, but maybe not necessarily play. I'm not going to say that all of these games are necessarily good. In fact, a couple of them I know for a fact some people would consider bad for one reason or another. But they all have something special. It could be heart, it could be interesting setting, good mechanics, great theming, or it might just be some really strange quality that tickled my fancy. And that's really what I wanted to talk about, with maybe a couple of tips and some history here and there for good measure. Most of these are going to be video games. We're going to be talking about mostly individual games, but there will be some franchise coverage here and there. There's a couple of board games I actually want to cover as well, thanks to Tabletop Simulator. Those will be a bit more of your how to play rule set that you can link to people if they ever felt they wanted a primer for playing on your next game night. Now for what this isn't. Reviews. If you want my review of any of the games that I'm going to cover, here it is. You should try this. Don't ask me for a number because numerical reviews are actually a cancer, and it's impossible to convey a complex emotional opinion numerically. So far. We'll see how far AI is able to come in the next decade or so, but for now, reviews get a negative 2.1 out of 4 stars from me. This also isn't a, hey, have you heard about this super indie underground game kind of thing. Most of these are actually really popular games. There's just not many of my friends that I'm able to share this with directly, so I figured I could give them a recording of this to actually take a look at and see what all the hubbub was about. And lastly, before we get into it, I want to shotgun out some things about me to give a little bit of context. All games are art. Even the one game that I will not dignify with being named, that was made by someone who really only wanted to make the game that, groups like 1 Million Moms and the like are always afraid of somebody making. I will say that it is art completely by accident, however, rather than by intent. And it should be noted that by being art, it is not inherently good, or in this case, even worthwhile. I am of the camp that Final Fantasy VI is the best Final Fantasy over Final Fantasy VII. As a matter of fact, I put 10, 8, and the first half or so of Final Fantasy IX in between the two of them. Fight me. The greatest anime ever made was Gurren Lagann. My favorite video game ever is Dance Central. You can stop laughing anytime now. I'm not a fan of what Kickstarter has done to game production. Or more specifically, I hate the whole please be an investor that doesn't actually get a return on said investment nature of the whole thing. Don't get me wrong, it's great that more games get a chance to exist with this, and some of them have been downright amazing. I just wish that our way of getting here didn't involve turning pre-orders up to 15. When I play a game that has customizable characters, I will typically go with a black woman. The reason for this being, if I didn't, you would never see them in video games. And now for what is perhaps my most controversial opinion. The Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie, and I consider it probably the only Star Wars movie that's actually a good movie. Now, to balance it out, the worst Star Wars movie in my book is the end of Revenge of the Sith, basically the part after Samuel L. Jackson dies. The caveat on that, though, is that I have not seen the Clone Wars movie. I've seen the series, which is great, would recommend, but I do hear that it is significantly worse than that. Okay, all that's out of the way. Now, let's find out what the heck these things are.